Do you want to add colouring to stamped images in a quick and easy way? In this video, I show you how. Hello there, Michelle Short here with Terrific Tags with Michelle. Today I have a card to share with you using quick and easy colouring with stencils. So let's get started. This is the beautiful Build a Garden Daffodil Delight set. So you get the outline stamp set with lots of sentiments and 2 images, and then also the simple colouring and layering stencils, plus a mini ink blending brush. And then there is an optional extra of getting a die set as well. I don't have that, so I'm just going to do it as kind of like a 1 layer type tag. But I did decide when I was making this tag that I didn't want it to be a standalone tag. So sometimes when I'm making tags, I know that I really love it and I actually think I prefer it as a standalone tag rather than popping it on a card. Sometimes I think it works either way, and other times I think it actually works better being on a card. So in this instance, I think that this tag does work better by being on a card. I think there's quite a lot of white space. Maybe if I cut the image out, it wouldn't look so kind of flat maybe, and then in which case I think it would have worked fine as a tag, but actually I really liked it on the card, and so I'm just going to create a card today rather than a standalone tag and then pop it on a card base. So I'm inking up this beautiful daffodil image with permanent black ink. I am stamping it twice just so that I get a really nice dark crisp line. And this ink is really great. It's perfect for lots of different applications, and it is really nice and dark black. But like I said, I am just stamping it twice just so that I get a really nice dark impression. Now I've stamped my image, I'm going to colour in the image in a quick and easy way using stencils. So I'm just taping my panel down to my craft mat here using satin masking tape. That's just so that it's not going to shift anywhere as I'm doing the ink blending. In the stamp set there is a guide to show you which stencils you need for this image and how you would layer them up. It is pretty self-explanatory once you get the stencils on top of the image, but it is really helpful to have that. So I'm using stencils 4 and 5, so I'm starting off with stencil 4 and I'm just lining it up with the petals here, as you can see, and then I'm going to take some more satin masking tape and stick that down onto my panel. I also add extra tape so that I'm going to cover up any of the white cardstock areas. I am notoriously clumsy when it comes to ink blending, and I often get ink where I don't want it. Because I'm not cutting this image out, I'm actually going to keep it on the panel itself, although I am then going to cut it into a tag. I don't want any excess ink outside of that area of the stencil. So I prefer to add lots of tape. I can remove it quite easily, and the great thing with this satin masking tape is that you can just wipe it clean and reuse it multiple times. I'm then going to add some ink blending to the image with the Golden Sunset Crisp dye inks, and I'm using all 4 shades of the collection today, and I'm going to start off by using this small blending tool. The set does come with a mini ink blending brush, and I am going to use that a little bit later, but to start with I thought I would use this small ink blending tool, and I'm using the lightest shade first, which is Sunray, and I'm focusing most of the colour on the inside of the petals. I don't necessarily want it to fade to white at the edges, but I do want it to be quite a lot lighter. For the flowers at the top, I'm kind of just going over them in general. Because they're so small, it's quite difficult to get that tool into, you know, smaller areas. But when I switch to the mini blending tool, I can get into those areas a little bit better, and then I do add some more kind of shading to those. So for the next layer I'm using Chamomile, and I'm just doing the exact same thing, focusing most of the colour on the inside of those 2 larger flowers on the petals, and then kind of just going over the top ones. When I go on to the third colour, which is Snapdragon, I'm using the mini blending brush, and this is really great because it's smaller, so you get into smaller areas, but because the bristles are more dense, you do get quite a large saturation of colour as well, so you don't need a huge amount of the ink, which is really nice. You can kind of just blend it on quite easily. So again, focusing most of that colour on the inside of the petals. What's great with daffodils is that they come in so many different colours. You can have like the petals on the outside be white and the inside bit be a lot darker, like yellow or orange. You could do the whole thing white, which it would be really, really pretty, or you could do the whole thing really dark yellow and orange, which is kind of the look I went for. I wanted it to be quite vibrant. So I finished off with this stencil here, and I just removed any of the excess ink with a cloth. That's because I know that I'm going to reuse this stencil for the images there on the left hand side, and so I want to kind of reuse that, and it's going to be easier if it's a little bit cleaner. All of these pieces of tape that I'm taking off, I am actually sticking them to my craft mat so that I can reuse them. I've then brought in stencil 5, and because I used a darker colour on that small ink blending brush, I want to remove the excess darker colour so that I can go back into the lighter colour. And what I do is I rub it on a cloth. This cloth I've had probably for about 7 years or something. I don't even clean it. I just use it to remove excess ink off brushes, and it does seem to work quite well. I just kind of go over it in a few areas. You can see that the ink's kind of coming off, and then although the brush isn't completely clean, it's light enough colour so that I can go into the lighter area and it's not going to kind of contaminate either the ink pad or the ink blending that I add onto the panel. So I can go in and do the exact same thing with this stencil that I did with the first, starting off with Sunray, then going to Chamomile, and then using the mini ink blending brush with the Snapdragon. So I can just finish off at the top there with those little daffodils. And then for this stencil, I'm going to shift it over, and then I'm going to colour in the inside pieces of these daffodils. And for this, I'm starting off with Snapdragon. I want these pieces to be a little bit darker. And then I go in with the mini ink blending tool and the darkest colour, which is Marigold. And then for the last stencil, I kind of just go over it basically with the Marigold. And then for the green, I'm using Grassfield from the Green Valley Crisp Dye ink set, and that's just kind of like a little leaf or stem there. There is one a little bit higher on one of the smaller daffodils, but I know that I'm pretty much going to cut that off, so I didn't worry about that being green. I'm then taking the Terrific Tag dies. This is one of the larger dies in the set, and I'm just placing it over the image to see where I want to cut the image out. Once I'm happy, I can hold that down with some low tack tape and run that through my die cutting machine. And I really like having that white space around those daffodils. I think they really pop off of the panel. And although that ink really is very vibrant at the moment, it does dry a little bit lighter. I then want to stamp a sentiment. There's lots of lovely sentiments in the stamp set, and I'm going to stamp the one that says just because. I really like having cards where it's a kind of generic sentiment like hello or just because or something like that I can send for lots of different occasions. So I'm going to stamp that onto some black cardstock. So I've prepped the area with an anti-static powder tool. And then I've inked up the stamp with Embossing Ink. This is a clear sticky ink so that when I apply the pure white crisp embossing powder on top, it's going to stick to it. I'm then using the heat tool here to apply the heat until it's completely melted, and then once it's cooled I can just use a cloth to remove that excess powder, and then I'm going to cut that down into a strip. I'm adding some glue tape onto the front of another tag that I've cut from Classic Crest 110 solar white cardstock. That's just going to give it some extra stability. Usually when I make standalone tags, I always add an extra layer onto the back, but even knowing that this is going to go on a card base, I did decide that I still wanted that extra stability. I added the sentiment on with some instant dimension foam tape, and I've added twine through the top of the tag. I'm then bringing in my A2 size white card base here, and I'm just figuring out that I want the tag to be in the middle of the card base, but I want there something else to be in the background. So I'm kind of looking through my paper here. This is the Essential Black and White paper pack, and I thought it'd be quite nice to have some kind of like black and white lines. I thought that that would really help the tag actually kind of pop out from the card base, and I quite like this one here with the thicker black stripes. So I'm just kind of figuring out if I think that that's going to work. And then I cut a piece off so that it's 5 black line strips thick. And then now I can kind of bring that in and see if I want it to be horizontal, and I decide that I want it to be diagonal. So I can add some glue tape onto the back of this piece, and then I can pop that down onto the card base. So that's an A2 size card base, finished size of 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. I'm then going to take that to my guillotine to cut off the edges. I could do that with scissors, but I quite like to do that kind of thing with a guillotine. And then I can figure out that if I want my tag to be in the middle or to the side, but like I said, I think it works quite nicely in the middle. So I'm going to add some more Instant Dimension foam tape onto the back of the tag. And then I can remove the backings and place that down onto the card. So just using some tweezers there just to help me out so I can kind of hover it over, make sure that it's straight, and then I can press that down. And then to finish off, I'm adding some Essential Black and White Enamel Dots, and I'm just using the black colour here. I thought that the black would match quite nicely with the strips in the background, and then there's already quite a lot of white on the card anyway, so I really love the black and white together, and then that really kind of bright pop of the yellowy orangey kind of colour on the daffodils. So that's the card finished for today. It was really quick and easy to colour in those daffodils with the stencils. Links to the products that I used will be listed in the description bar on YouTube and also over on the Altenew blog. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Hello there, crafty friend, Lydia here. Just popping in to say that you can get your daily dose of crafting tips, techniques and tutorials just like this by subscribing to the Altenew YouTube channel. All you need to do is click on that little bell up there and you will never miss a video. Thanks for watching. Bye bye.